Welcome to the Sunday service of Unitarian Universalists of Clearwater. I'm Margie Manning, Worship Associate for this morning, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. Our congregational building is located on Tocobaga land, but today our congregation is here on Zoom as we honor the most vulnerable among us and keep our relationships strong within the constraints of our current situation. All are welcome here, where we are united by our covenant to create a beloved community and to treat each other with respect, kindness, and as equals, no matter our gender, race, sexual orientation, or economic status. All are welcome here, where we have no creeds. You may choose to worship one or many gods or deities, or none at all. Right now, we are in a period of ministerial transition, and we have a different speaker every week. Our speaker today is the Reverend Dr. James Macomber, who has been part of the Unitarian Universalist movement for more than 60 years. I'll introduce Reverend Macomber to you in a few minutes. Now for our prelude. The words for our call to worship come from Reverend Sean Dennison. We gather as Unitarian Universalists to be reminded of our shared commitments and to strengthen one another, not only for speaking truth to power in our broader communities, but in facing the struggles that are a part of everyday life. We support one another when we falter, while still holding each other accountable to our vision of love and justice. That love lives at the center of all that we do, regardless of our individual beliefs. And it stretches us wide enough to leave room for the teaching and learning that happens here. That love reaches out. It allows us to risk, to stay present, even when we are uncomfortable, and to keep our communities open enough, welcoming enough, that all might find shelter here. Love guides our very deeds. This is our vision of the beloved community, our collective vision that we hear about from our leaders, that so many of us long for and that we model time and again when we lean back into love, show up as our best selves, and make the world anew. Come, let us worship together. As I light the chalice, please join me in the reading of the chalice lighting words, which were written by Reverend Sophia Betancourt. We light our chalice this morning to call forward our best selves to the flame of our living tradition. We light our chalice as a beacon of truth, as a reminder of hope in hopeless times, as a promise to live into covenant together. And now our opening hymn, We Give Thanks, number 1010 in the teal hymnal, and the words will be on the screen. Each Sunday, we share joys and sorrows with one another. If you have a joy or sorrow to share, please email the church office by Thursday so it can be included in the next Sunday's service. But today, let us pause to remember Ahmaud Arbery, the young Black man in Georgia whose murder has shocked the nation. We offer a prayer for his family and demand justice for him. Let us honor all the joys and sorrows unspoken that we hold in our hearts. I've been thinking a lot this week about sanctuary. And for our prayer this morning, I'd like to offer the lyrics to the song Sanctuary by Carrie Newcomer. Will you be my refuge, my haven in the storm? Will you keep the embers warm when my fire's all but gone? Will you remember and bring me sprigs of rosemary? Be my sanctuary till I can carry on. This one knocked me to the ground. This one dropped me to my knees. I should have seen it coming, but it surprised me. In a state of true believers on streets called us and them, it's going to take some time till the world feels safe again. Will you be my refuge, my haven in the storm? Will you keep the embers warm when my fire's all but gone? Will you remember and bring me sprigs of rosemary? Be my sanctuary till we can carry on. We'll have just a few moments of silence, and then we will sing Loving Kindness. The words will be on the screen.
May I be filled with loving kindness. with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
The other day, Mike and I celebrated. We were able to completely pay off our pledge to UUC for the rest of this church year. Yay! Plus, we threw in a few dollars more for the staff and all those who continue to support us at UUC. Now, at a time when many are struggling, we are really grateful that we had the money to do that. Now, here's what I was thinking about as Mike wrote that check. I thought about sitting in the octagon, looking into the faces of people I've come to know over the past 7 years as we celebrated, grieved, listened, learned, and shared holy space with each other. I realized how much I look forward to seeing all your faces in these little Zoom boxes every Sunday. I thought about the women in the St. Petersburg Covenant Group. I just joined in December. I'm just getting to know everybody, and we'd only met in person 3 times before COVID changed all that. But our covenant group has kept up and strengthened our connections through email and video. I thought about everybody in our congregation who may be alone, maybe not feeling well, or maybe feeling lonely, and how grateful I am that we have pastoral associates and others who reach out, so no one needs to feel forgotten. I thought about the Facebook post I saw just the other day where members of the Care Circle gave out toilet paper and face masks to those in need, and how we still creatively care for one another. I also thought about the members of our Board of Trustees who have worked really hard in the light of expected revenue declines to come up with a budget for next year that keeps our congregation strong. And I thought about how appreciative I was that Mike and I could increase just a little bit our pledge for next year. We're putting our money where our theology is, our belief that community matters, and strengthening relationship is how we live our faith. Our money lets us maintain a building and pay the electric bill, but those are the foundations, the building blocks for growing our connections. Now, we can't pass the basket today, but we can and must continue supporting our congregation during these trying times. Our congregation relies on all of us to be very generous right now. Now for the offertory. We are happy to welcome to our virtual pulpit today the Reverend Dr. James Macomber. Reverend Macomber grew up near Cleveland, where he began attending a Unitarian church in the fourth grade. Now, he was a professor of management at University of Tennessee for 24 years and began seminary in 1997 at Vanderbilt University in Nashville. Ordained in 2001, he has served Unitarian Universalist congregations in Tennessee, New Mexico, New York, and Georgia. Jim retired from full-time ministry in Atlanta in order to be with the last love of his life, Anna, a special ed teacher on Long Island. They had met while he was interim minister in Stony Brook, New York, but he was called as settled minister to an Atlanta area UU congregation almost immediately. After moving back to Long Island in 2010, he served as a part-time contract minister for congregations in Southold and in Queens, as well as serving 2 elected terms on the local school board. Anna retired after 40 years in public education, and they moved to Palm Harbor in the summer of 2018. Welcome, Reverend Jim.
Thank you so much, Margie. Good morning. I wish everyone a happy Mother's Day. I'd like to open with a lighthearted poem, one from the late Shel Silverstein. If you are familiar with his poems and drawings for children, then you know they hold considerable wisdom for adults too. This one is titled Ma and God. God gave us fingers. Ma says, use your fork. God gave us voices. Ma says, don't scream. Ma says, eat broccoli, cereal, and carrots. But God gave us tasties for maple ice cream. God gave us fingers. Ma says, use your hanky. God gave us puddles. Ma says, don't splash. Ma says, be quiet, your father is sleeping. But God gave us garbage can covers to crash. God gave us fingers. Ma says, put your gloves on. God gave us raindrops. Ma says, don't get wet. Ma says, be careful and don't get too near to those strange, lovely dogs that God gave us to pet. God gave us fingers. Ma says, go wash them. But God gave us coal bins and nice dirty bodies. And I ain't too smart, but there's one thing for certain. Either Ma's wrong or else God is. The second Sunday in May, at least in this country and in Canada, it's a day set aside to honor our mothers and, just as importantly, others who may have nurtured us during our upbringing. Julia Ward Howe is a 19th century Unitarian poet and peace advocate, and she organized really the first precursor to the modern Mother's Day in 1870, some 150 years ago. She's perhaps best known for composing the Civil War song, the Battle Hymn of the Republic. As the United States emerged from that period of intense conflict and crisis, many reform efforts took shape. Life was never going to be the same, and most everyone knew it, just as we now know that life in this country will become significantly different when our current crisis reaches resolution. Ms. Howe put much of her effort into the women's suffrage movement after those crisis years, and a part of that was her Mother's Day of Peace, which came to be celebrated in many cities in the 1870s. Then, as now, social reform came slowly, but Ms. Howe never lost her resolve to empower women as a compelling force for peace and to have a day set aside, both for honoring mothers and demonstrating for peace. She died in 1910, some years before President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed the second Sunday in May to be Mother's Day. And a couple years later, suffrage came to be. somewhere along the line, our friends at Hallmark became involved. And of course, they really got the ball rolling, a little bit away from demonstrating, a little more toward honoring. Julia Ward Howe's story should inspire modern-day Unitarian Universalists to take leading roles in the social and economic justice reforms that might materialize after the end of our current pandemic crisis. I hope that we will step up. But a risky thing to do in a Unitarian Universalist congregation is to assert that we are really all alike. We do value our diversity, don't we? And yet I can, with no risk, cite one commonality among us all. Each of us, every one of us, has or had a mother. Women somewhere at some time became pregnant with us. They carried us and gave birth to us, and they suffered considerable pain and discomfort in so doing. They are or were our biological mothers. Since every one of us owes our existence to a biological mother, it is entirely appropriate that we honor them or their memories this day. Many of these biological mothers also raised us. They nurtured us. They educated us. They read to us. They clothed us. They loved us. And they taught us how to love. Of course, they also liberally laid down the law with an artful blend of "you had better" and "you had better not" commands. You know, you had better brush those teeth, and you had better not forget to say thank you. Shel Silverstein would have us believe that many of these commands seem to violate natural laws. I mean, why should I eat that green stuff on my plate? And why shouldn't I make a huge splash in that lovely mud puddle? But now that many of us have matured a bit, we have come to see that being a mother is actually a process filled with complex tasks and responsibilities. However, not every one of us here this morning was raised or nurtured by a biological mother. Some of us lost our biological mothers early on, or became somehow estranged from them. But that does not mean that there was no one there for us. You see, I have every faith that we Unitarian Universalists are sensitive, compassionate, loving people. Someone must have nurtured us, else we would have not gotten here. And so today is a day to honor our biological mothers and anyone else who helped see to it that we became human beings committed to the greater good. Those nurturing people may have been fathers, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, grandparents, teachers, friends, and so forth. Perhaps such people took the place of our biological mothers, or perhaps they augmented our own mother's efforts. In either case, it is a good day to honor them as well. And if that seems a little strange, perhaps the noun or title mother should be considered a verb instead. The infinitive becomes to mother. The participle, mothering. The verb would carry many definitions in the dictionary. To mother means to birth, to nurture, to teach, to love, to provide, and I'm sure each one of us could add many others. To mother, in other words, is to do the work of raising our children into responsible, loving adults. I have been fortunate. My biological mother provided most of the mothering that I needed. And I see now that it was not exactly an easy assignment. Yet it is easy to look back and see that she had help from a number of other people, people I'm related to, people I'm connected to, and even a few people I don't really remember very well. As I've been writing this, I have been thinking about my mother. She must have worked very hard, but she is gone now. I'm willing to bet most of you have been giving thought to your mothers too, or perhaps you've been contemplating someone else who undertook mothering on your behalf. Or maybe even a whole cluster of nurturers has occupied your mind, and that's just fine. Toward the end, my mother began to slow down rather dramatically. She seemed to be a different woman from the one who nurtured me early on in my life. She lost mobility. She had always artful handwriting, but she could no longer read it because of the macular degeneration. The arthritis in her hands kept her from sewing or playing her piano. She so loved to play. Debussy was her favorite. But she was still mom. And even now that she has passed, she is still mom. I'm quite sure that as a child, I had no conception about how my mother or father would age. But over the years, they both nurtured my brother and me, and there were certainly some rough spots along the way. Mom stayed the course. And today is a day set aside for me to honor her memory, and so I do. Some of us have been mothered by someone else, someone other than our biological mothers. I'm reminded of the Victorian novel Peter Pan, a story we probably all remember. Well into the story, Peter tells Wendy Darling that he and his band of lost boys need a nice motherly person. Wendy easily slips into character and says, "Come inside at once, you naughty children. I am sure your feet are damp. And before I put you to bed, I have just time to finish the story of Cinderella." Discipline and loving attention at the same time. Later in the novel, even Captain Hook's antagonists come to treasure Wendy. One asks, "Could we not kidnap these boys' mother and make her our mother instead?" You see, the market for mothering is insatiable. I submit that we have all been mothered, perhaps by our mothers, or perhaps by someone like Wendy Darling. For many of us, they are gone from our lives. What we have today, Mother's Day, may be only a memory. Nevertheless, memories of those who mothered us are just as important as the mothers who are still with us. If you are fortunate enough to still have your mother, or one who mothered you along the way in this world, then you can tell them directly, one more time, how you appreciate their efforts. Mothering, you see, is also a timeless sort of activity. It has been going on for millennia and will continue for millennia to come. So let us think of our own mothers and those who mothered us, who nurtured us during the formative years when we needed all the loving guidance we could get and usually didn't know it. Let us honor mothering and all that that verb entails. So might that be, and amen.
Now it's time for our closing hymn, How Could Anyone, number 1053 in the Teal hymnal.
How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
As I extinguish the chalice, let us join together in our benediction. Please say with me, go in peace, go making peace, live gently, love mightily, and bow to
to the
mystery.
mystery.
Have a good day.